And now, the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. Thank you for indulging me. I'll conclude this debate in my way. God, that feels good. I've always wanted to set some of my favorite songs in this debating chamber. Given that Spotify Rap just dropped yesterday, and to follow up from a DJ, I could not resist the temptation. Dear members, that's my rendition of My Way from Frank Sinatra 50 years after the song's release. The world is in a very different place today from the days of Sinatra. There were no internet, no COVID, not even Reuben College at Oxford. There had been no MacBook, which would run obsolete within days, or indeed, last-minute essay crisis, which jumps out in forms of, frankly, typing on the broken keyboards, the common challenge faced by many of the PPE students. There had been no Chinese student at this very university, as far as I'm aware, who had been elected president of the union. The world was locked in a Cold War, one that divided NATO by the Warsaw Pact, one that was split by the Iron Curtain. 5 decades on, I speak to you as the union's outgoing president, as someone who must too face the curtain. The curtain that divides our world today is by no means as conspicuous, yet just as divisive and contentious as its counterpart in the 1960s. Some have touted that we're experiencing a new Cold War. Others suggested that we're in for decades of entrenched, protracted acrimony between the two greatest powers on earth. In universities, we're witnessing a rise of toxic, vitriolic debates raging on between the self-anointed defenders of order and freedom, and among those whose competing definition of the just and the right have come to displace civility in debate. In society at large, we are simultaneously victim and perpetrator of a culture where speech, only of certain kind, of certain shape, from a certain class or space, is tolerated. And indeed, this is the impression that PPE might have given all of us over the past decades. After all, we could be excused of thinking that PPE stood for Pepper Pig education. For those who lost their place in their speech, as I recently learned, union president are more likely to make that mistake. Some have noted that it is elitist, snobbish, and alienating in the privileges that it represents. Others suggest its overemphasis on the generic at the expense of the specific has precipitated a class of political court jesters only to take over the reins of our country. Indeed, as many of distinguished peers and speakers tonight have suggested, PPE stands for everything but personal protection equipment, another one of its namesakes. It seemingly leaves its graduate bereft of both common sense and technical expertise, a rare feat indeed. But with all PPEs adamant on shooting for a possible 2-1 at their finals, tonight, I shall seek to make the unpopular opinion popular. I want to make the case that PPE is a force for good, that much of what is followed from it is instead predictably the fault of individuals, of agents, of those who squander the opportunity to make PPE worthwhile. We should not believe that the system has it all, that in face of the system, individual possesses no agency whatsoever. To succumb to that narrative would be akin to a president shirking his responsibility at the cusp of war, deeply irresponsible. So here goes. Let me start by telling you how I'm going to structure my speech tonight. Because many evenings spending looking at other people's Google Drive folder at their PPE essays has taught me the importance of structure. And equally predictably, I have 3 distinct strands in my case: the politics, the philosophy, and the economics. Across all 3, the PPE degree has been a force for good, with the occasional blemish that we must set aside. On politics, PPE teaches us to be dexterous, If there's one thing that Molly and I share in common, or so I hope, it is that we are relatively flexible practitioners of politics with an astute understanding of how moral principles must adapt on the basis of reality. Thank you. PPE compels us to specialize in not one, but two, even three disciplines all at once. Especially given the British education system really isn't built for diligence. Whether it be many routine essays that we must scramble together, or Pulitzer attacks whose bodies we only read only to hastily bury them under the carpet as we churn out essays after essays, speaking as if we'd read them thoroughly. These are all rituals of baptism by fire we must endure. They also exercises that in turn cultivate an astonishing ability to adapt and make do with the unknown, the suboptimal, and the constrained. In other words, it's a crash course for Westminster, where every and all sides wants to claim to be the hero, just like your tier partner, eyeing for your essay for strawman to blow out of proportion. And yet, we all knew that few, if anyone, could truly own the title. PPE blends the bushy-eye authenticity, you know how that meme goes, how it started, followed by the picture of how it's going, with the pragmatism that one must adore in defending a half-constructed and a half-rehearsed essay in front of your tutor. What better practice is there than this for putting together and debating the merits and anti-merits, the costs and benefits, the normative justification and the non-normative excuses of policymaking? In all seriousness, though, I do not regret signing up for a course that has broadened my horizon and my skill sets in ways that I could only have dreamt of as a 15-year-old Chinese immigrant living in Lancaster. On economics. Economics is, so I'm told by PPE graduate friend who helped me write this speech, all about constraint optimization. You have a finite number of resources and options, and you have to get as much out of them as possible. So my question for the proposition side of the house is, if not PPE, what? What degree would you prefer to say? What degree would aspiring PPEs realistically take that would maximize their value as much as they do to this community as well as PPE does? Because remember, in the absence of PPE, you will not magically get everything everyone studying those topics the side proposition want them to. Those who like to study more about the world could no longer do so alongside their economics and philosophy, would not just study politics. Or if they're worried they couldn't get in for that, they might even more worryingly opt for geography. Many have suggested that PPE is a degree where privilege begets privilege. Yet I'm a firm believer that education, especially high-quality education, is a potent force for leveling the inequality curves. So who's right? Me or the hypothetical many that PPE students cite in order to construct a counter-argument and rebuttal to their counter-arguments? I'd say I'm correct. The recent trends amid the improving access, broadening egalitarian engagement, and diversifying both the modules and texts on offer by PPE have been crucial in rendering the degree more accessible and representative of the voices of those 99% of those who have been denied access traditionally to spaces and opportunities that we are able to enjoy right now. From more transparency and accountability over the admission process to more intense and targeted support for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, to a genuine determination to make the course more practically applicable and directed towards the real world. It's imperfect, but it's changing. And I've been a first-hand witness of this shift that have taken the PPE course over the past years, past couple of years, past many decades, and a beneficiary too at that. On philosophy, for those who know me, you guessed it, I'll wrap up my speech. Because God help me if I have to do anything related to philosophy. One of the perks of taking time out to be union president, beyond hosting speakers that always cause a stir among the student press, or inviting everyone here to try polemics, our TikTok for debating who is now a tech partner for the union, is that I have had the time to contemplate where life has taken me so far and where I'm going next. In thinking about the past and in imagining about the future, I've benefited massively from the intellectual audacity that the course instills in most of its graduates. PPE teaches us that it is okay to be wrong, so long as we can justify being wrong. And of course, learning from our mistakes, which is obviously just as important. The tripartite curriculum, or the bipartite after year 2, forces us to reckon with how different subjects and ways of looking at the world can come together or fall apart. Had it not been for the linguistic and discursive competences that many years of my essay crisis and tutorials has inserted in me, I would never have been confident enough to make a bid for the presidency. Not only once, but twice. And to stand here today to speak to you all one last time. Let me go back to Frank Sinatra. Let me go back to the classic that never ages. Somewhat like some of the tutors who are still teaching PPE 52 years on. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I might be leaving, but PPE is here to stay. Thank you. I call for a division of the House. As following the tradition, you will be voting with your feet tonight. If you're voting in favor of the motion, you may leave through the door marked ayes. If you're voting against the motion, you'll go out through the door marked noes. But before you vote, I've got a few words of thanks. I hope you've all had a fruitful and exciting term. Having graduated this summer, being president of the union has given me an opportunity to stay in Oxford for another term. I dedicated the 3 loveliest years of my time to Oxford. I'm proud to preside over a vibrant Michaelmas term to share this year's tears and joy. I do so with no regrets, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the society I love. And with that, I remain Chengkai, Bracens College, for the final time, your president.